All right, let's return to this. At the end of April, the amaBhungane team, writing for Daily Maverick, reported that a trove of leaked internal documents laid bare the close ties between controversial businessman Zunaid Moti and high-ranking politicians in Zimbabwe. But the team has been stopped from reporting for now. We looked at the legal issues. SANEF extremely concerned that the journalists are being gagged, in the words of SANEF. Zunaid Moti is the owner of the Moti Group that has interests in mining, property and aviation, and he joins us now. Mr. Moti, why are you taking journalists to court? Why are you stopping the publication of these articles?
Well, let me start off and thank you very much for having me, first of all. I'm not the owner of the Moti Group any longer. I've resigned from there, and I was present when this crime took place of theft in the group, so that's why I'm involved in the process. So,
okay. Thank you.
Let me start off with which one of your questions would you like me to start off with? You've thrown a few at me now.
So why are you going to court to stop the publication? Why did you go to court in the first place?
First of all, let me just start off and tell you that amaBhungane has been harassing me for a long period of time, maybe 6 months now. And every single time they ask me questions around these various topics that they pick, I've been very accommodating. I've been working within their timelines, answering their information. It becomes very difficult when they supply you with stolen documents. And when I say stolen documents, I heard the previous lady talk about the fact that journalists can't steal. It's not true. Theft is an ongoing crime. We had a person that stole 4,500 files from the company and then went on and gave it to media and gave it to an ex-business associate of ours to start a slandering campaign. We then asked the information to be supplied to us by amaBhungane, as in they give us extracts of items in documents and say, please comment on this. And we said, listen, we're not worried about your source anymore because we know your source. It's an illegal source, but that's fine. Supply us a document so we can authenticate it, so we know that it's valid and that it hasn't been tampered with.
So you're claiming the source is Clinton van Niekerk, who was an ex-employee. Why do you say it's an illegal source? I think it was your wording.
Yes. Well, I said an illegal source of information for amaBhungane. Clinton stole the documentation and then directly or indirectly supplied it to amaBhungane. So when we reported the case of the theft of the information, immediately, obviously, as I mentioned previously, theft is an ongoing crime. If you're in possession of something that is stolen, you have a right to claim it back. What's wrong with that?
But do you understand that journalists have a right to report on information that exposes corruption or anything like that, that would be in the interests of the public?
I first of all can't understand what they've written about being in the interest of the public. Some of the items they've written about, as an example, the Investec relationship where I owed them 2 million or 2 billion or 10 billion 10 years ago. I can't see the relevance of how that features in me being a public person. That's number one. And number two, yes, they can be part of a theft, and they are part of this particular theft. They've never denied that they received the information from Clinton, number one. And number two, they never denied to be having control of this information. In fact, they initially did deny it. I just want to take you to a very important point which could shed light on this. In the affidavit, they say we were not at any point in time in possession of any documentations belonging to the applicants of the Moti Group. Our access to such documents is via servers located outside of the country, only to find later on where they say we were in any event unwilling to provide documentations available to the applicant at any time. So they keep these documents under the protection overseas. I can't even understand why. If there's nothing wrong with the documents, why hide it away?
Mr. Moti, if you and the company have done nothing wrong, why are you concerned if the documents are made public anyway? If there's nothing that can be exposed?
I have answered all of their questions, and they've tried to expose lots of things, as you mentioned about the Zimbabwean issues and so on. And we've answered them very well. There's nothing that we've done incorrectly. But I take exception when my bank accounts in some of the companies are published, in which case in the last publication they did so, as well as create the wrong innuendos around the business environment. You know, you can answer as many questions as you want. When these amaBhungane guys write, they twist what you're actually answering. And at the end, they print your responses and they create the wrong innuendos. So that is a problem for me. And also, I do not want my children's birth certificates all over the place, my mother's death certificate all over the place, my application to go on a holiday to London, my visa application. All of those items are lying with them, and they got caught. When we metadated the documents they sent to me, we were able to establish that those documents came from my server, and yet they were saying they hadn't been involved in any of that.
Yeah, well, they would only be able to use information if they can link it to some public interest concern. amaBhungane has already reported on your chrome mining interests. So can we talk about that? Because you say the wrong innuendo has been created. It said that ACF became a conduit through which millions of dollars of cash flowed into money-moving operations across Zimbabwe. And then the suggestion is that loans were made to obscure companies which appear to be linked to Emmerson Mnangagwa, the leader of Zimbabwe and his second in command. Have you bribed Emmerson Mnangagwa or his second in command? Have you been involved in money laundering in Zimbabwe?
No, I haven't, and I haven't bribed Emmerson Mnangagwa. But look at just how you asked that question in the first place, you know. The issue of you saying that you create the impression that that is a fact in the first place. It's not a fact. We have a business in Zimbabwe. It's quite a successful business, and we have relationships with all government people in the system, from the Ministry of Mines to the Presidential Office, etc., and so do many other companies from South Africa. I mean, there are many listed companies that have those relationships. What makes you all of a sudden decide that I bribe somebody because you have some information that suggests that? You know, I mean, it's ridiculous. When they talk, look at just the question you asked me now. You're saying, have you bribed it and have you done this? You create the impression as though what you're saying is a fact. And we've answered those questions.
I'm actually asking a question, Mr. Moti, and Al Jazeera has done an incredible expose and has shown that gold smugglers have been sanctioned by the Zimbabwean government and are possibly doing business on behalf of the government and busting sanctions for the Zimbabwean government. So can you understand the concern? If their information is correct and they have people on camera, the evidence is very damning, then there is state capture going on in Zimbabwe. Are you involved in state capture in Zimbabwe, where a few people are being enriched and they are taking their selected business people along with them?
Well, first of all, let me just say that I'm not involved in any gold businesses in Zimbabwe at all. But it would have been a good idea that they would have investigated that more clearly in South Africa around the banks that were involved in that. amaBhungane should focus on stuff like that. And so far as me and I'm concerned, I have not been involved in any state capture. I run a business down there. It's a legitimate business. We have no favors that we've acquired from the government in any way. We followed all the due process along the way to ensure that we are following all regulatory and requirements in getting our approvals for exporting of material, etc. So I can't imagine when they talk about monies. Let me just be specific about something. I mean, I know what they're referring to now because it was referred to in the Century report. When we sold a piece of that particular business and we received money in Zimbabwe, the country was suffering with a high, or should I say hyperinflation at that time. Any money left in the bank for any reason whatsoever at that point in time was devaluing on a daily basis, probably an hourly basis, as it is right now. And we had advanced those monies into various investments, including lithium investments, including investments in resources of other nature in terms of mining claims, etc. And we did make loans to a substantial number of people in order to ensure that you conserved your capital from a dollar perspective. Just to let you know, in the space of a year, the currency went from approximately 3-1 on the local currency over to almost 2,000 to 1. So it was a good transaction for us to do advanced monies into businesses, etc. And today, the lithium business, as an example, is a massive business. It was a great investment that we'd made. So I have not moved any monies for Emmerson Mnangagwa or any other person in Zimbabwe, or had investments with them, or made any transfers of funds to any people that I shouldn't have. But I mean, I'm now having to answer these questions in South Africa about those issues in Zimbabwe, which is still fine, and I've answered those.
All right, and while we're clearing the air, one last question. In 2018, there were reports that President Cyril Ramaphosa complained because somehow he landed up in a private jet owned by yourself. And I think that happened through the SANDF. Are all your dealings with South African institutions, South African politicians above board as well?
What dealings do I do in South Africa, my dear? I have no particular mining interest in here. I don't myself. I'm not dealing with any politicians. I don't work with the government. I don't supply them with anything.
Yeah.
On that particular initiative, Mr. Ramaphosa utilized the plane belonging to my family via executive and via the military. But look at that as an example. He hired the plane. He hired it through, I think it was executive and the South African Defence Force. And yet it was Moti as a relationship with Ramaphosa. Look at that. There's a clear example. It had nothing to do with me. I had even not spoken to him about it.
All right. Thank you. We appreciate
I'm not
time.
involved in any businesses that relate to government supply or supply of any equipment to government or working with government or tenders or anything of that. And my name is never, or my family's name is never arrived in any of these inquisitions that we have, including the Zondo Commission. I've never been there.
And
so
if
I can't understand the fuss.
And if you've got nothing to hide, will you continue to stop amaBhungane from reporting on that trove of documentation?
I just want to make something very clear. When people are stealing, it's still wrong. My constitutional rights is not lower, bigger, or better than that of Sam Sol or amaBhungane. I have the same rights. Those must be respected. The fact that you're a journalist doesn't give you any better rights and allow you to do things outside of the law. And that's a fact. And those rights need to be respected as we need to respect the media. I have no problem with any of the media. I think they're fantastic. But I do have a problem when you have a certain agenda, and I don't really know what the amaBhungane agenda is, because they keep on harassing me. And they have actually proven nothing at this point in time.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. That was businessman Zunaid Moti.